The rise and fall of MapQuest, how the pioneering mapping service lost its way. MapQuest was once a household name and the go-to mapping service for millions of people. It was one of the pioneers of online mapping, and for a time, it dominated the industry. But over the years, MapQuest has struggled to keep up with the rapid pace of technological change and competition from newer, more innovative mapping services. In this video, we'll explore the rise and fall of MapQuest, and what lessons can be learned from its decline. Chapter 1. The birth of MapQuest. MapQuest was born in the early days of the Internet, in 1996, when mapping services were still in their infancy. Its founders, R. Barton, Chris Heavley, and Andrew Wallace, saw an opportunity to create a website that could provide driving directions to users. At the time, there were no easy-to-use online mapping services that could do this, so MapQuest quickly became popular with users who were looking for a convenient way to plan their routes and find directions. The service became an instant hit, attracting millions of users and soon became the go-to source for driving directions in the US. In its early days, MapQuest used simple, easy-to-read maps with turn-by-turn directions that made it easy for users to plan their trips. The service also innovated in the use of technology, becoming one of the first mapping services to offer satellite imagery and 3D views of locations. MapQuest was also the first mapping service to offer a mobile app, allowing users to access its services on the go. With its user-friendly interface and innovative features, MapQuest quickly became the dominant mapping service in the US. Its popularity led to the announcement of the acquisition of the company by AOL in 1999 for $1.1 billion, which at the time was one of the most significant acquisitions of an internet company. The success of MapQuest paved the way for the development of other mapping services such as Google Maps, which would eventually overtake MapQuest in popularity and market share. Chapter 2. The Golden Age of MapQuest. The golden age of MapQuest occurred during the late 1990s and early 2000s when the service was the dominant mapping platform in the US. During this time, MapQuest was the go-to source for online maps and driving directions, with millions of users relying on the service to plan their routes and get directions to their destinations. One of the key factors contributing to MapQuest's success was its user-friendly interface, which made it easy for anyone to use, even those who were not tech-savvy. MapQuest's maps were simple, easy to read, and included turn-by-turn directions that made it easy for users to find their way around. Another factor that contributed to MapQuest's success was its early adoption of new technology. MapQuest was one of the first mapping services to offer satellite imagery and 3D views of locations, which were innovative features at the time. The company was also an early pioneer of mobile mapping, launching one of the first mapping apps for mobile devices. During the golden age of MapQuest, the company enjoyed significant market share and brand recognition, and its user base continued to grow. However, despite its early success, MapQuest's dominance began to wane in the mid-2000s, as new competitors such as Google Maps emerged with more advanced features and a superior user experience. Nevertheless, the golden age of MapQuest remains a pivotal moment in the history of online mapping, and the company's early success laid the foundation for the development of modern mapping services that we use today. Chapter 3. The Decline of MapQuest. MapQuest's decline began in the mid-2000s when the company began to face increased competition from new mapping services such as Google Maps. As users became more familiar with online mapping, they began to demand more advanced features and a better user experience, which MapQuest was slow to provide. One of the key factors that contributed to MapQuest's decline was its failure to keep up with the rapidly changing technology landscape. While competitors such as Google Maps were investing heavily in new features such as real-time traffic data and mobile-friendly design, MapQuest was slow to adapt to these trends. As a result, users began to switch to other mapping services that offered a more advanced and modern experience. Another factor that contributed to MapQuest's decline was the company's decision to focus on revenue from advertising, rather than improving the user experience. MapQuest's maps became cluttered with ads, which made it harder for users to find the information they were looking for. The company also failed to innovate in areas such as mobile mapping, which became increasingly important as more users began to access online services from their smartphones. As users began to migrate to other mapping services, MapQuest's market share and relevance began to decline rapidly. In 2010, AOL tried its best to revitalize the brand with a new design and features. In July 2010, MapQuest announced intentions to build a new site utilizing OSM data exclusively. MapQuest streamlined its UI and reduced its size on July 14, 2010. My Maps personalization lets MapQuest users customize the interface. However, the efforts were largely unsuccessful, and MapQuest continued to lose ground to competitors such as Google Maps and Apple Maps. Verizon acquired MapQuest in May 2015 after buying AOL. Verizon sold MapQuest to System1 in 2019. Today, MapQuest still exists as a mapping service, but it has a much smaller user base and market share than its competitors. The company has shifted its focus to providing mapping and geocoding services for business clients, rather than serving individual users. While MapQuest's decline is a cautionary tale of the importance of keeping up with rapidly evolving technology and user demands, the company's early success and innovation helped pave the way for the modern mapping services that we use today. Chapter 4. MapQuest's attempts at revival. After being acquired by AOL finally, in 2010, MapQuest made several attempts to revive the brand and compete with other online mapping services. These attempts included a redesign of the website and mobile app, as well as new features such as the ability to book hotels and flights directly from the MapQuest website. One of the major changes made by MapQuest was the shift to a more user-friendly and modern design. The cluttered and outdated interface was replaced with a more streamlined and intuitive layout, which made it easier for users to find what they were looking for. The new design also included more dynamic and interactive features, such as the ability to customize maps with different colors and icons. Another focus for MapQuest was to improve its mobile mapping capabilities. The company launched new mobile apps for iOS and Android, which included features such as turn-by-turn directions, real-time traffic updates, and the ability to save and share maps. These updates were aimed at making MapQuest more competitive with other popular mapping apps such as Google Maps and Apple Maps. MapQuest also attempted to differentiate itself from other mapping services by adding new features that were not available on competitors' platforms. For example, MapQuest introduced a feature called Local Voice, which provided users with audio directions spoken by local residents, rather than a generic computer-generated voice. The company also added the ability to search for gas prices and find the cheapest fuel options along a user's route. Despite these efforts, MapQuest was unable to regain the market share it had lost to competitors such as Google Maps. The company's focus on revenue from advertising also continued to make the maps cluttered with ads, which made it harder for users to find information. While MapQuest continues to operate as a mapping service, it has shifted its focus to providing mapping and geocoding services for business clients, rather than serving individual users. Chapter 5. Lessons to learn from the rise and fall of MapQuest. The rise and fall of MapQuest provides several important lessons for businesses, particularly those operating in the technology sector. First and foremost, the MapQuest story underscores the importance of innovation and staying ahead of the competition. MapQuest was an early innovator in the online mapping space, but it failed to keep up with the rapid pace of technological change and the emergence of new competitors. As a result, the company lost market share and struggled to remain relevant. Another key lesson is the importance of user experience. MapQuest's decline was partly due to its outdated and cluttered interface, which made it difficult for users to find the information they needed. In contrast, Newer mapping services such as Google Maps and Apple Maps focused on providing a more user-friendly and intuitive experience, which helped them to gain popularity. The story of MapQuest also highlights the importance of diversification and adaptation. As the market for online mapping services became increasingly crowded, MapQuest attempted to diversify its revenue streams by adding new features and services, such as the ability to book hotels and flights. While these efforts were not successful in restoring MapQuest to its former glory, they did demonstrate the importance of being flexible and adaptable in the face of changing market conditions. Finally, the story of MapQuest emphasizes the importance of customer feedback and engagement. MapQuest's attempts to revamp its brand and offerings were partly based on feedback from users and attempts to address their concerns. However, the company was criticized for not doing enough to engage with its user community, particularly in the face of mounting competition. The rise and fall of MapQuest offers several lessons for businesses, including the importance of innovation, staying relevant to customers' needs, and investing in a user-friendly interface. In today's rapidly changing marketplace, companies that fail to innovate and adapt risk becoming irrelevant to their customers. Thank you for watching. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to subscribe and share.